Well, Jay and Dave Sports Bar is back yet again for another week. Only 2 weeks left in the regular season, and it was way back when we got this schedule almost 9 months ago that everybody kind of had this specific matchup for Boise State circled on the calendar, Dave. And guess what? The game is as meaningful now as we thought it was going to be then.
It's the weekend. I mean, I know you're more excited for Frozen 2 to come out, right?
Yep.
Yeah, probably that. But I think the game, when it got announced, and I mentioned it this week, the schedule came out February 2nd, February 4th, something like that. Mm-hmm. That when it came out, everyone just kind of circled that one, being like, hey, this is going to decide the division in all likelihood, right? Mm-hmm. And it will. And I think that it's pretty cool. It's the stakes are what everyone would hope. I think Boise State has a little more margin of error than Utah State does, and I know Gary Anderson talked about it. This will be their third straight elimination game, but for Boise State, it all, if they win it, this is what they wanted. Then they'll be not just win the division, they'll still be in the Cotton Bowl race, and they'll be able to host the conference championship game. Well,
as long as we're talking about Frozen, my favorite character from that was Olaf. I believe that should be everybody's favorite character from Frozen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the Mountain West version of Olaf this last week was Jaylon Henderson for the Boise State football team. I really reached right there. I was trying. You mentioned Frozen 2. That was the best that I could come up with while you were talking for the last 30 seconds.
Our buddy Aaron looks like Prince Hans or whatever, right?
He does look a little bit like Prince.
I think that was always the rumor.
Yeah. But Jaylon Henderson coming out of kind of nowhere.
I think it's about as out of nowhere as you can get at that position, pretty much.
A third-string quarterback starts for the Boise State football team, and they roll 42-9 against New Mexico. New Mexico, not the greatest. We mentioned their struggles in terms of against the pass last week on the podcast, and well, they certainly lived up to that because they allowed, again, on paper, on the depth chart, a third-string quarterback to throw for 292 yards, and the Lobos got blown out on the
three tutties. They scored, obviously the defensive touchdown started the game, and they scored 3 straight offensive touchdowns when they had the ball. So obviously you're 28-0, you can pretty much cruise.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive. Jay and I were talking about it today at interviews when Zach Hill kind of mentioned like Jaylon's improvements and said he really noticed it in fall camp. Well, when we have done this podcast in whatever iteration, I think it was the previous one, we did talk about it was this one. We did talk about how his growth, how Jaylon Henderson looked so much better this fall camp than we'd ever seen him before. And whether he was going to win the starting job or not, obviously it didn't seem likely, but how far he has improved. From my eyes, I only project myself as being really smart. I'm not. But when
I said that stone face.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly it. But in terms of seeing like one player really take such a big step, in my time here, I'm hard pressed to think about guys who I really think took a really big leap in a year's span, and he's absolutely up there.
Kind of especially that late.
Yeah.
Too. I mean, Jaylon's a senior. This is his
you
final year of eligibility.
Yeah, freshman to sophomore.
Out of a younger kid that gets a little bit of experience, gets in the weight room, and then boom, he's good. But Jaylon, a junior college transfer that just kind of actually not. Yeah, he went the JC route.
Yeah,
sorry, he started UTSA, then junior college, and then to Boise State. So kind of an interesting route here for him, but such a cool story. I mean, he's a senior starting on senior night, and it was anything but the token senior day start. This wasn't Bush Hamden that got the nod over Kellen Moore for a couple of snaps.
That's exactly how I put it in the game story.
Oh, good.
Yep.
This was a guy that put himself in a position to start. The opportunity presented itself, and he performed about as well as either the first or second string quarterbacks at Boise State would have performed given the same circumstances, I believe. And I thought the ultimate, hey, we believe in this guy move was on the first play of scrimmage. On the very first play, they call a rollout with Jaylon in the end zone, and he throws a 16-yard out to the sideline, completes it to another junior college transfer in John Hightower. But I would love to know how many coaches in the country would call a rollout play backed up at the 3-yard line.
Was it to his left too, if I recall, or was it to his right?
I think it was to his right.
Okay.
Yeah, but either way, like in your end zone, you're just gonna roll out. Man, you would usually try to protect your third-string starting quarterback from situations like that. But again, it was the ultimate move of, hey, we believe in this guy. And Zach Hill said it today. It set the tone for the rest of the game, and it absolutely set the tone for the rest of the game.
And you don't always get that sort of insight from coaches. I mean, I get it, but but after that game Saturday, Harsin said, they didn't expect to be on the 3-yard line. I think maybe they thought they would be a little further up. And he literally said, we said screw it, and they called that play. Right, and he said that on that route on his options, Hightower was the deepest and most difficult throw to make, and that's what he made. It was like a 16-yarder, put him right toward the 20, and they were rolling. I think that was really interesting to hear, just because it was like that's they always talk about it, and of course they're going to say we have confidence in this guy. We have confidence in this guy. Well, you saw it in action, and I thought that was real, and that was really interesting to me. And it's not common in this sport, to be frank, to quite have that sort of thing.
That's what it's almost not even the words. It's it's that initial reaction when you talk about the depth in this quarterback room. So like, what I mean by that is the first reaction when you talk to a player or a coach about it. It's never like a first word that comes out of their mouth. It's always like, you know what I mean? Like it's always like, whoa. This is the real deal. This quarterback room going 3 deep is absolutely the real deal. I will firmly state that 99% of the time coaches out there are like, yeah, we believe in all 3-4 quarterbacks in our room. That has to be completely false 99% of the time. I believe that you believe in 2, but to believe 1 through 3 just like you would believe in 1 is a very unique circumstance, especially at Boise State. It's almost unprecedented. It is unprecedented in the FBS era.
It is. Yeah. Since '93 was the last time they did it, and that wasn't out of necessity. That was out of wanting to, because they were 3-8 that year.
Yeah, very different circumstances.
Circumstances. And, I kind of go back a little bit to Brett Rippon gets hurt 2 years ago. Montel starts. They only had 264 yards of offense in that game. People forget. They do. That was not a great offensive performance.
It wasn't. 128-14.
Yeah, that New Mexico team, obviously, I think a little better than this one, if I recall correctly. But
they were. That was a much better New Mexico team.
But still, third-string quarterback is much different than a guy who's a grad transfer from an FBS school. I think that it also, again, when I've talked about this, from the big picture, the fact that they recruited and had 5 guys in fall camp competing for that job. It helped them, because when we think about that year, 2 years ago, the backup to Montel Cozart in that game was Chase Cord. He was a true freshman. And there was not the redshirt rule.
There was no redshirt rule, so if they played him, they would have had to burn the redshirt.
Exactly. So this year, the fact that they at least had, coming out of camp, 4, one of them moved positions, Riley Smith, but the fact that they even had enough scholarship guys there to handle this is interesting to me. That has not always been the case here.
Yeah,
where they're kind of SOL if they had to press someone into duty, and they had a guy who was a redshirt senior that was able to kind of step in.
Yeah. By the way, check that, Dave. The 2016 Lobo team was the 9-win team. The 2017 one, where Montel Cozart played, they were a 3-win team.
So there you go.
I was thinking that they were the better team, but I was thinking it was the 2016 team. It wasn't. They weren't that good in 2017. Hey, whatever. It was neat to see him do it. And Jaylon, one thing they'll say about him, and I think one of the biggest drop-offs between your first and second string quarterback and maybe your third and fourth string quarterbacks are just the belief that your teammates might have in you to get the job done. But Jaylon, man, he is a guy where his teammates seem to love him. They believe in him. They support him. And I think that was on display on Saturday.
Sure.
I mean, nobody really missed a beat with this kid under center. And I do think that's one of the more unique things. Maybe even bigger than the drop-off in talent or ability is the drop-off in belief of your teammates, whether they would admit that or not, between your first, second, and then third string quarterbacks.
And if there's a collective effort from those said teammates to maybe step up their level, their game a level, like, hey, we need to help this guy out too.
And that happens.
And they did. Holani only got 7 carries, but they averaged 10 yards a carry.
Yeah, I think that there was a reason for that. I mean, he got 7 carries, 73 yards, was super productive, busted a 50-yard run early in that game. And, in the second half when it was time to run the ball, there just wasn't really a need to expose Helani to any more hits, especially considering the games that you have on deck and in the hole. So you kind of – I have zero indication if that's actually what happened, but I have common sense. So that's the common sense that I'll use.
Logic would dictate it.
Yeah. And so they let Andrew Van Buren get quite a few carries, which – hell, he's deserving of those carries lately too, especially considering the way that he played down at San Jose State. And so
got to shake off rust with Mahone a little bit.
Yep. You just feel like, the depth was tested on this team, and the depth has answered the call. At least enough so far this season.
Yeah, and I think really, I mean, and it goes without saying, but the biggest test of that will be Saturday, just because of the stakes and all that, but just because of the guys we saw that left the game, the current situation of the unknowns at some positions. Yeah, it's the true test of it's going to come Saturday, but I think so far they've done a great job of handling those sorts of things. It'll be Zeke Noah goes out, and just those sort of things, and they've been able to replace guys. Jordan Happel stepping in for DeAndre Pierce. I mean, they've been able to thus far do it, and it has not been a noticeable drop-off, I think, at any of those positions where it's been injury.
It will be interesting to see what happens at quarterback moving forward. I mean, we were live on the Blue for the pregame show this last week, and we kind of had a front row seat to whatever the heck was or wasn't going on, for that matter, with the quarterbacks. And, I mean, you saw on the field, if you showed up an hour before the game, you could see that Chase Cord and Hank Bachmeier didn't throw. I mean, that was out there for everybody to see. And so despite the fact that they were in uniform, given how it's gone in the past where Hank Bachmeier suited up and hasn't thrown in pregame and didn't play, the writing was on the wall early in warm-ups where you saw those guys not throwing, and you kind of knew that, hey, they likely weren't going to play.
Yeah, and I think that's a position where you need to at least have a little bit of a warm-up. And so when you see him not doing that, you're just kind of like, okay, well, there you go. There's your answer.
I just think you can kind of go back now. And, I mean, like, well, what was the game before this last week? Wyoming. And Chase Cord didn't play against New Mexico. I think it's safe to assume that maybe he wasn't a hundo versus Wyoming, that means.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he got hurt in practice, but I really don't think that's the case here.
Because we saw
Actually, no, I take that back, because after the game, Jaylon Henderson said that he felt as early as Sunday he was going to be the guy that got the start against New Mexico. So I think you can really pinpoint that Chase even himself hasn't been at a hundo.
That would
be 100% healthy. It's just kind of like the cool way to say it.
Yeah. It's on fleek, that term. I'm not going to but yeah, Jaylon said Sunday that he knew. So obviously something happened during that Wyoming game.
Some welcome insight by Jaylon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good cat. But you knew that something's up with Chase. We did see Chase take a couple big hits. One in particular when Van Buren kind of missed on a blitz. Cord gets pounded,
got smashed on that play, and actually almost completed the pass. To get
and then he went in the tent. For a little bit, but he came back against San Jose State. Hank gets popped, leaves the game for a little bit. He came back, didn't play the next week. Same thing with Chase Cord.
That was even interesting too, though. I mean, Chase basically went in for one play and scored a touchdown, and Hank came back and finished off the game. And then Hank hasn't played since.
Yeah, I looked
go back to the BYU game. Chase Cord takes a hit scrambling up the left sidelines in the second half. Might have been in the second quarter. I can't remember. Comes out of the game. They run an immediate wildcat package with Hightower. Next play, they put Jaylon Henderson on the field on 3rd and long. Pass almost gets picked. Eventually, Cord did come back into that game. But I'm just saying this goes back a little ways here.
Yeah.
And more than anything, I'm interested to see how it's going to play going forward. I think that you heard Brian Harsin in the postgame say that they are really excited about Jaylon Henderson, and you can hear how genuinely he means that in his voice. I mean, they're excited to see what he can do. I will say this. Going on the road to Logan will be more of a challenge.
Yes, that is absolutely very adequate to say. Though strangely, I did look in Mountain West play. I think Utah State is 1 or 2 in pass efficiency defense. So they've done a better job. But if you look at their stats for the season against the pass, it's not that great. But yeah, going to Logan is one thing. Boise State won there in 2017 in their last visit.
41-14, blew them out.
Played a really nice game. Octavius Evans.
Jinx. He scored a touchdown.
We're such nerds.
He scored a touchdown in that game. His very first.
And they, but since that game, they're 11-1 at home, and that only loss was BYU this year.
Yeah, and they got. I mean, in fairness, they got blown out by BYU. And that game happened the week after Boise State lost in Provo by 3. So I guess if you're going off like a points comparison, Boise State still should have the upper hand in this game.
Correct.
Do we know a spread yet for this? I remember looking it up on Sunday.
I saw 8.5 around there.
I looked it up on Sunday and it wasn't posted yet.
Yeah, saw that right around there.
8.5. Ooh.
On the road. I don't know. Like
Jordan Love is the biggest swing vote in this thing, though, of what side of that spread you're going to be on.
And he's so weird. And like, you know, I know this year he's not been that impressive, and I completely agree. When he was on against Fresno State, he looked awesome.
Yeah. That's what scares you.
That's
like it's almost like the unknown. Like who's starting at quarterback for Boise State? Who's starting at quarterback for Utah State? Which is a legit question this week. And if it is Jordan Love, which Jordan Love do you get?
Yeah, exactly.
Because if it's the good one, you're going to be in for a long afternoon.
It's going to be a long afternoon. And and he's been turnover prone, and Boise State hasn't been on defense. Does that help Boise State, or does that help Jordan Love? I don't know. And so I think that's another X factor in this matchup that I'm really interested in, because it could be, you know, you could see it like Boise State go out there and win 41-14 again. You could see it. It's possible. But you also could say, woo, if Jaylon Henderson has to make his first road start in that environment, and if Jordan Love can play and he's on, then you have a recipe for to get knocked off.
Hey, that 11-2 record we talked about too, technically better than what Boise State has had in that span on the Blue. They've lost twice in that span, which is still an extremely good record, by the way. I'm not saying it isn't, but I'm just trying to point out how tough Utah State has been in Logan over the last, year and a half or so. They've been really, really good.
Yeah, and that's Is this their biggest rival in the conference?
Utah State?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Boise State's biggest, but I would say it's up there for Utah State. I mean,
because
Dave, look what happened on the field in 2015 when Utah State beat Boise State in Logan. I mean, it was a scene like you rarely see at the end of a regular season football game. They looked like they just won the national title.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. And it just kind of all the. Because I think they hadn't beat Boise State since like '97 or something like that, and just all the,
I mean, it
letting go of all of that energy.
And that's exactly what it was. It's interesting too, because if you flip the script and Boise State beats Utah State, it's kind of like, they're expected to. Well, how much did they beat them by? Only 10? Probably could have beaten by more.
Yeah, last season. I mean, last
down
season.
there, though, Utah State beats Boise State, and like I said, they treat it like they just won the national championship. I don't know if they got shirts made.
Utah, they might have. Utah State last year was 14 in the AP when they came here. And, the fans obviously were excited to beat them.
Yep.
But, that was the highest ranked team that had ever come here.
Golly,
isn't that weird?
I forget about that.
Isn't that weird? And but also, and again, talk about expectations. Like here, people were psyched, but people weren't storming the field. You know what I mean? So,
I really do forget about that. I remember when everybody's kind of looking that up a year ago, and they were like, "Hold on, this can't be the case." I need
because in the CFP they were they were the low 20s, but in the AP they were 14.
Yeah, and AP is the more historical.
Correct.
I mean, I guess it goes back further. The college football playoff rankings don't go back very far. So
I don't miss voting in that very much.
College football playoff rankings?
No, the AP.
Oh, the AP.
Yeah, I was a voter. I was a voter last year too, so I don't know how high I had him that week, but
I want
to do it like 4 a.m. after games.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like any fun. I want to share a thought on that. My parents were in town this past week, and my mom was kind of telling me, she's like, I kind of miss the days where, you always knew that the Rose Bowl was going to be the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and
Pac-10 back then.
Yeah, Pac-10 back then, and you just kind of always looked to it from day one of the season. It's like, what Big Ten team are we going to play in the the Rose Bowl? And that's all changed because of the BCS and now the College Football Bowl playoff. And last week we were talking when did everything start to get so negative and kind of when was all of this success kind of ruined? And I think that you can point at the BCS and margin of victory and all that stuff. Back in the day, when it was just the old bowl system and it was Pac-12 champ versus Big Ten champ, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that margin of victory and all that stuff didn't matter and stuff. So we've moved towards this new era of ranking teams and how we rank teams and now how we crown a national champion, there have been so many more voices added to this mix and so many more opinions. And so now, I mean, that's really put a lot of pressure on these programs, the players. It breaks your heart to hear what – I'm sorry, I'm kind of going down a different direction here, Dave, but it breaks your heart to hear what the Penn State quarterback's going through right now. They lose against a ranked team on the road at Minnesota, and the kid has been getting death threats now for 2 weeks. Like, I just wonder if that happened back then. I don't know if it did in a previous era because we didn't have social media and stuff, so it wasn't so easy to reach out to these players. But also, like, everything would still be in front of, you know, Penn State and what they want to do. They beat Ohio State. They're still in the Big Ten championship, which means they could be playing, you know, the Oregon in the Rose Bowl. But now everybody wants more than that. They want the college football playoff, and everything has to be perfect. There's so many more voices and opinions poured into the rankings and how all this works.
Yeah.
That I think it's kind of ruined everything.
It's ruined everything.
Or at least added a lot more negativity to this thing at times.
And you know, and also too, like, I mean, we want it both ways though, because it's like, do I support, you know, more things for athletes, more athletes' rights? Yes. But also at the same time, and you know, bowl games don't matter as much now, and guys don't play in them sometimes.
Some don't.
And that like, selfishly, when I was growing up, I was so amped for bowl games. They were the best.
They were the best. Absolutely.
And now it's just kind of a little bit of an afterthought. I still like them. They're
still cool, but it's mostly just because they're around the holidays and because football season.
And you get to see weird teams play. Yeah. You've been seeing conference games for so long.
Right. And we only have to cover them. We only have to cover one game an entire month. So that means like there's more time for us to consume and watch. But you're kind of right. I feel like they just had a little more to them back in the day. And now that the college football playoff is here, it's like all anybody really cares about are those 4 games. Yeah. Especially ESPN.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I get it. And yeah, because even like you think about it's, I mean, it's not the same thing, but you know that UConn played in the New Year's Six Bowl. It was a while ago.
A few years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, but not that long ago. What are we looking like 8 years ago?
Yeah, but people don't remember those.
Yeah.
And it is kind of an afterthought. Western Michigan played in one.
Kansas played in one. They did.
I know they did. But like, or even a couple years ago, Western Michigan. Nobody remembers that. I don't even remember that game. And you know, they played Wisconsin, right? I think they played Wisconsin.
I just remember it happening. There were some boats and they were rowing them.
Yeah. I wonder what happened to that coach. Good on him. Hey, representing that state right there. But also to go to the Penn State thing.
Yeah.
That's a sick place. That's all. I mean, in so many ways, but also like that right there. I'm not stunned. I'm not surprised. They have that dude this year. That story about the guy who would write letters to players like about their hair and stuff like that. That is a scary place.
It is.
I'm sorry if any Penn State grads listen to this, but that is a frightening place.
Oh, if I could tell Sean Clifford, the starting quarterback, any one thing, besides pointing at how awesome he's been and that his team has been great this year, it's that sometimes I believe me, I've never gotten a death threat, and I can't even believe how scary it would be to get multiple ones, let alone multiple death threats. But sometimes, like, I just don't know if you can give those people, acknowledge them or give them a voice. Like, because I feel like that in a way is kind of somewhat what their whole thing is built off of, or I don't know. I would like to hope that more people would support and have encouraged him. Just to wrap this back around to Boise State now, for example, like last week we talked about what Brian Harsin said and the Twidiots and all this stuff, and you know everybody was talking about it. We ran this poll on the pregame show last week, and believe me, I know it's not the official poll of all polls, but when we want to talk about the minority having the loudest voice at times in terms of some of the negative criticism out there, 91% of the people on our pregame show poll said that they were actually perfectly okay with what Brian Harsin said. 91%.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It is. I know. I don't want to unwrap that because we kind of already put it back to bed. But I guess at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that
where was this poll?
On the Bronco Roundup Game Day show.
No, but like how they vote on it? Like on the website?
So we put it up and it's an interactive poll. Go to the website, app, all that stuff.
Right. If you put it on Twitter, it would be different.
Oh, if you put it on Twitter, it'd probably be different. But I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Twitter is such like a concentrated type of social media where you got to get a little more diverse than that to probably find like the true meaning or the true opinion of something that Brian Harsin said. And once you kind of expand it a little bit and take it away from just the keyboard happy,
I think people take the effort to actually go to the website.
Yeah.
Like, how do I put this? I don't want to say like the more sane ones, but you know what I mean? Like sometimes on Facebook.
I got it. The ones that donate.
Right. The ones that donate. The ones that invest.
Kidding.
The ones that invest. But even if like you're on Facebook and you get the avatars where it's not even their face, or it's like if you and I were a couple and it would be Jay and Dave, like they share one. They're usually the ones that are kind of negative. The people that are like, this is my face, this is me, they're going to be the ones that are going to be going on that and voting that way. And I agree. I mean, Twitter is like an absolutely concentrated, 100% pure, uncut, straight into the veins. Social
it can
media.
be. But some of it, I think is super intentional. Some of it, I don't always blame people. I mean, I feel like one question I got a lot this last week is again, try to rope this thing back around to Boise State is, wow, Jaylon's the starting quarterback now, which means Zach Matlock's warming up. He's the 3, so Chase Cord must be number 4.
And you're like, no, that's not right.
That's not it. Chase Cord just wasn't healthy. He didn't throw in the pregame. He didn't play. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with it.
How do I – yeah, or like, well, why were those guys dressed? If they were injured, why were they even dressed? Must have been a suspension. No, it wasn't. How do I say this?
I can't tell you why they're dressed because they're not going to play. But I can tell you it's not because they're suspended.
That would be the funniest like subterfuge ever, where the coaches are like, if we dress them out, maybe they'll think they're still playing, and then all of a sudden Jaylon comes, oh no, we didn't prepare for this.
There's a movie. Is that the way that
there are smart coaches, but that would be hilarious if that was actually done. Also, though, you want to talk about handling those sorts of things? You knew who's handled that well? And again, we can tie this back to Boise State.
Who was handled
well? Kyle Brotzman handled that well.
Now we're going back even further.
About those sorts of things.
Yeah, he had death threats after missing the field goal.
And if you talk to him, now, that's off his back, man. So anyway.
Strong human right there. But, yeah, just kind of had to venture down that path apparently, but hey, that's one of the points of this podcast.
That's why we do it.
We let it take us where it takes us.
There's a huge list of talking points behind this camera, and Jay is only on number 2. I'm just kidding.
Actually, there's just a sign in the teleprompter that says auto script.
That's all it says.
And right now we are on auto script, off the script, auto script, whatever it is. But so Boise State, they are able to rebound despite all the negativity, criticism, or whatever the heck you want to call it, because it wasn't all negative. There definitely was some support that emerged after what Coach Harsin said last week in regards to his football team. But they put it all aside with a third-string quarterback, and they again, blasted New Mexico, and they looked really good in all 3 phases of the game. I joke around. Daniel Contrell played awesome on Saturday.
He did.
And I know that I've mentioned that a couple of times, Dave, but I truly believe he played a great game for a long snapper, and I don't even care.
I think he was even like UNLV in that game. He did a really nice job just getting downfield. He said, because we talked to him this week, and you don't always talk to the long snapper, and I'm sure not a lot of people were just dying to hear from the long snapper, but it's just interesting, right? Local kid, walked on, played multiple positions, settled in at long snapper, goes on scholarship. There's certain situations where they want him to stay in and block. Sometimes they just tell him just to gun downfield. And you can tell when they give him that go,
he's gone.
That kid gets amped for it.
Yep.
And he's done a hell of a job on it in coverage. And if you guys want to talk about last year in December, the amount of insanity, and some of it justified, toward Boise State special teams, not as much of that this year.
No.
Not nearly as much of that this year. And that's part of it.
Yeah, I think we can really look at the last 3 games. Like, okay, against Wyoming and especially San Jose State, like there were bigger, more noticeable plays by special teams. Avery had the punt return against San Jose State. He had the blocked punt against Wyoming that eventually led to the drive where Boise State went down and tied the game. But then last week, again, Daniel Contrell making good plays that helped Boise State to win the field position battle and stuff. Special teams has been better this year,
Yes.
and in each of the last 3 games, they have made a nice little impact. Considering Boise State won by 31 last game against the Lobos, it wasn't quite as noticeable, but still, that's why it definitely is worth pointing out that they still were able to impact the game.
And defensively, only gave up 3 points until New Mexico's very last drive of the game when it was all backups.
All backups in.
So
yeah, I was looking this up too. I was kind of surprised that Boise State right now, in terms of defense, scoring defense, meaning points per game allowed, potentially the second lowest of the Brian Harsin era. And it's a couple years ago they were just a fraction of a point better.
Yeah, exactly. And if that's what matters, then there you go. I mean, you're always gonna have people that have issues, right? You know, about not enough turnovers and all that stuff, and I get it. Like that's where Boise State used to just dominate people.
They did. If you could win the turnover battle by 5 every game, obviously it doesn't even matter what else happens in the game. You check the box and say, yeah, I just want to win the turnover battle by 5, and we'll literally take our chances with everything else. But as a baseball guy,
yeah,
kind of looking at sabermetrics and how much they've impacted the game, and seeing now how much more on-base percentage means than batting averages, and there's even stats out there that have more weight to them than those two, certainly. But when
like Babip,
yep. But when the Moneyball era was starting to build, and Billy Beane's using on-base percentage over batting average, like I just wonder if there's something to this. Like Boise State's 9-1, and they have won the turnover battle twice this season.
2 times. Yeah.
Like, so is there something there?
No,
Brian Harsin joked around at the press conference, and he was like, "Well, we're certainly not trying to do it this way." But like, part of me, just being a baseball guy with a baseball background and seeing how much sabermetrics and stuff have impacted the game, like I wonder if there is something to this. Because I'll tell you this: like, if you don't allow big plays,
yes, and
it's really hard to score on defenses.
And if you get get the other team off the field,
so get the other team off the field. So maybe it's about not allowing big plays and having really good third down defenses.
And that's what they've done.
And that's basically as good as a turnover.
Yeah. 2 of their last 3 games haven't been as great on third downs. So they were top 10 in the country. I think now they're around like 20th, I want to say, which is still really good. But that, like, I've had that question before. It's like I do think they want to get those turnovers. I just don't think that they have to.
I don't think that they have to.
You know what I mean? It's like you said, though. I think
it'd be great.
It's not even
great if you can.
Yeah.
But there's a way to do it without, maybe.
It's not bend. I don't want to say it's bend, don't break, because that's such an overused term. But as you said, if you are designed to not give up big plays, and when you're in those key situations to make stops, you don't have to overexert yourself to try to get that ball.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you ask the coaches if they necessarily agree with that, but or they would admit that. But I think there's a sound logic to that, considering that they also consider 4th down stops a turnover, and they've been really good on 4th down.
This is such a good nerdy thing to talk about, but I don't even care because I love stats.
I'm trying to think in case people don't hear, I'm walking away for a couple minutes.
Yeah, right. I think that I would trade preventing big plays versus getting interceptions. And there's one other part where you can still get turnovers, and that's forced fumbles. And for me, I would rather force a fumble than get an interception. Hear me out. Usually when you get an interception, that means the ball is being thrown downfield. To where if you get a fumble, you actually really might gain some big competitive advantage when it comes to field position, especially if you're sacking the quarterback, knocking, if a ball carrier within a few yards of the line of scrimmage, you knock one out, get it on the turf. Like I would rather have. I mean, I've just been thinking about it lately because you just wonder if there's something more to it. And like if you could not allow big plays, still force a few fumbles every now and then, and you have good third down defense, like maybe that is the new one. Maybe that's the new on base percentage.
Yeah. Put us in the damn booth. I think, but also it's like the math. If you're 50-50 on recovering those fumbles, because at least in interception you have that ball.
Good point. But you put it on the ground, you're not guaranteed to get it.
But if that's it, it's kind of like the basketball, like analytics, where it's like, well, if you shoot 50% on 2s, but if you shoot 38% on 3s, it's a lower number, but it's worth
more points.
Yeah. could be like that too. Where in the end, your field position is better.
Come out? What are we going to call it on this?
Manalytics.
Mentality? Manalytics?
Mentality. God.
You really? Did you have that one ready to go? How'd you come up with that so fast?
I think I've heard it before somewhere.
No, you just trademarked it, in my opinion.
I did.
Manalytics. Mentality.
We're limiting our audience a little bit with that, but it probably is limited anyway, so we're talking about
right. Mentality, by the way, comes from Riley Wimpy. Semi-joke, but not really.
I think so.
Post-game press conference a couple weeks ago.
I think he said it like tongue-in-cheek, but he was kind of like sheepishly saying like they actually do call it that.
We kind of do call it mentality.
He didn't say it like that. He's a confident voiced young man.
Oh man. Been a fun show so far. It's definitely not what I predicted coming into this thing, but heck, when is college football super predictable? Right when you think you got to figure it out, it usually goes in some other direction.
Guess what? It should be fun.
Should be fun.
And as much as you want to be businesslike about this sport and all that stuff, this is a team that plays on a blue field that has a dog that goes and gets the tee.
Dude, find a hype man like by the way, find a hype man like Cole.
Yeah.
He's over on the sideline barking like crazy, which makes me feel a little bit better about Wrigley. Wrigley's kind of a barker, my dog, 2.5-year-old lab. A little bit of a barker. Cole's like one of the best trained dogs you've ever seen, and right before kickoff, he's getting hyped on the sideline, barking like crazy.
Yeah.
Kickoff, goes, gets that tee, comes back, and is a perfectly good boy.
Yep. He's the hype man.
Just saying, find yourself a hype man like Cole. Yeah. I wish I had one.
Yeah.
Actually, I do. It's Wrigley, but I just don't get.
I think you say it's me. I think you say it's me.
Yeah, you kind of. I just don't get the obedient dog part of it. And that is our remodeling that's going on.
It's right on the dot. Usually,
really bad timing at the way that sounds. Oh well.
In our TV screens all just went out.
Yeah, I hope that's not because of the drill.
I wonder if that's related.
Our newsroom is being renovated. It's almost done. We only got to put up with this for like another week and a half or so. So we're almost through it. But I promise you, if you can hear that noise, it's neither Dave nor myself.
I had a big lunch.
It is a drill that's going through the newsroom wall.
Okay, so we've hit on the Boise State stuff, but I'm interested. You did basketball again. We talked about it before. C of I won this time.
It was a great game. If you're a C of I fan,
they rolled them up, right?
Yeah, they got redemption for what happened a week ago in Nampa. It was the 208th edition of the United Heritage Insurance Mayor's Cup, which I feel is very fitting because we live in the 208. They call it the oldest basketball rivalry in the state. It's got a ton of history and a ton of tradition. They play twice a year. We air them on Idaho's very own 24/7 and KTVB.com. Called the game last week, and then you won by 9. Down by 12 in the first half, rallied back to win by 9. They played round 2 in Caldwell at the C of I last night, and the Yotes, wire to wire, absolutely dominated.
And it's the 208th edition, and for you longtime fans, that's a little Easter egg for this podcast.
Boom.
I mean, I think it's always cool when you get to flex that and do that. You know, was typing out or writing better? What do you think for your little stat sheet?
Okay, it does take longer to write.
Yeah.
So like when I'm talking with the coaches, I can really knock out my notes quicker. But it turns into an arts and crafts project because you still have to find a way
color
for this to
and
be
all that
presentable.
Stuff.
Yeah, so you're color coding it. I'm not super good at Excel. You're trying to get all the margins to match up, all that stuff.
But on your resume, it says you are good. Right?
And, I'm gonna put it on there.
Everybody does it.
And then you have to go. So then I had to go to the local store to print it off, and then I had to cut them out. And whatever. Office Max, I feel like I'm okay with it because they have free glue sticks. Yeah, I probably used an entire free glue stick to like glue this piece of paper on.
Brought to you by Office Max.
Right? So it really kind of turned, you're like at the, whatever, not the X-Acto knife, but I don't know, whatever you cut it with. It's kind of like an X-Acto knife.
That's pretty much what it is, right?
Yeah. But it's like a big one on like the.
Oh, yeah.
You know the
thing. The cutting thing.
So it kind of turned into an arts and crafts project. So I think I save more time on the front end, but you do add a little to the back end. Once you're done writing, it's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
But I think I am going to go in the future. I think I'm going to type them. I can just fit a little bit more information on there.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
A little inside baseball for everybody.
I tweeted out a picture last night.
Yeah, you did.
If you care, go to my Twitter account. If not, I don't blame you.
Do you really want to know how the sausage is made?
People right now are like searching the podcast. Like, can we find like a less nerdy podcast?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
What is happening right now?
Where are the bad boys of Idaho podcasting?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Talking about Twidiots and stuff. Like, let's get back to that.
Let's listen to these dorks. Who should get fired? Come on, man.
Right? Nate Brunel, Rocky Mountain alumnus, local guy, team high 24 points last night. Coach Blaine said had to get him going. Wanted to draw him up a couple of plays from behind the arc early. Knocked 2 threes down right out the get-go and had an awesome dunk, too, and a baseline alley-oop. One thing I like about our podcast, Dave, is we do spend a lot of time talking about Boise State football, but there are some other teams that you really have to pay attention to right now. And one of them is the College of Idaho men's basketball team because they're top 3 in the country. They've played in the NAI version of the Final Four the last 2 years, although they can't call it the Final Four due to trademark infringement. So they just call it the national semifinals. But just so you can relate to their stage a little bit better, it's the NAI version of the Final Four.
Just like when you guys had the Super Bowl. Otherwise, it's the big
game. Yeah, that's what advertisers have to call
advertising,
it. The old big game.
Yeah, you can call it the Super Bowl, but
January 31st, whatever it is.
The big football game.
NNU, Paul Rush, another local graduate. I really do think he's got that program out at NNU going in a great direction. They'll be good this year, but Dave, wait for next year. Like, I don't want to say that and dismiss this year, but 1 year from now they're going to be really good, and I believe contenders in the GNAC. And as long as we're talking about the College of Idaho, we have to talk about their football team.
Dude, the Howl.
The Howl.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
Hell yes.
The Yotes are playing a home game against Ottawa University.
Which is not located in Canada.
Yeah, leave your maple syrup at home. Bring your cacti to the game because they're from Arizona, not Canada.
Don't wear denim.
What is Ottawa University in Arizona?
I wish I knew.
Is there, Dave, you're okay. This is a trivia question. You should know this. Is there a city called Ottawa in Arizona?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe a sponsor. I mean, College of Idaho used to be called Albertsons College for a cool minute.
It's like wasn't there was the bowl game that was sponsored by a different city's tourism board, right? This last year.
Was it?
Yeah. It's kind of like that. So it's brought to you by Canada. It's like
I'm going to embarrass myself. We're getting back to the college basketball tournaments this time of year. You have the Charleston Classic, the PK80 a couple years ago, which I hear is going to come back in a couple of years. You also have the one in Myrtle Beach, and they play this commercial nonstop. And it goes something like, "It's the Myrtle Beach times, whoa," and they just play it over and over again. You're welcome for that, by the way.
Nothing's good as the do 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 do, the that commercial with the humpback whale during the Holiday Bowl.
Pacific Life or whatever.
Yeah, it's like that one with like the whale like.
It's the Myrtle Beach times, whoa.
So the
I took highly capable choir in 7th grade, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
So the Bahamas Bowl was sponsored by Maker's Mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, Maker's Wanted. I was like, Maker's Mark. I was like, it's sponsored by booze.
They've had some Maker's Mark prior to the show today.
It was sponsored. The Bahamas Bowl was sponsored by Elk Grove Village, Illinois.
That makes a lot of sense.
Doesn't it? Bahamas, Illinois.
Same climate.
Very confused for one or the other. But yeah, that was it. That was what it was sponsored by. So maybe Ottawa University is sponsored by the fine people dressed in denim in Canada.
Maybe.
But yeah, so like that.
Yeah,
but they both have like really good offenses, right?
Yeah, they do. There's going to be some fireworks, I think. DJP, Darius James Peterson, leading the College of Idaho into battle. This is like their first playoff game in like who knows how long because they had this like big gap in between. I love Mike Sanford. Sanford. Oh, man. We'll get to him in a moment. I guess we could mention him. Mike Sanford, former Boise State quarterback and offensive coordinator, now the offensive coordinator at the Utah State University. Mike Sanford, golly, are you kidding me? Safford is an amazing SID out of the College of Idaho, and he provides us with all these awesome nuggets, and you get it like first outright conference title since 1953.
You're like, holy crap!
My God. Well, they didn't have football for like 35 years in between. Exactly. Still really cool, but there was a pretty sizable gap. Right. It might have been 40 years. Like huge gap. Still looks cool on paper when you're like, 16-game winning streak, longest since 53.
Yeah.
That's like 60-some-odd years ago, man.
Exactly.
Sick.
Ottawa University is a private Baptist liberal arts university that was founded in Ottawa, Kansas, but has a second campus in Surprise, Arizona.
Well, there you go. Surprise!
Surprise, Arizona.
That game's at 12 o'clock. The Yotes get to host. If they win, they do have another shot to host a second-round game. If they run the table and make it all the way to the national championship game, we could have a little bit of scheduling controversy depending on what happens with the Boise State football team, because the NAIA National Championship is set to be held on December 21st. If Boise State goes to the Las Vegas Bowl, that game will also be on December 21st. So a lot of great football. I almost feel like they should move the Las Vegas Bowl to honor the College of Idaho football team. I mean, that's never going to happen.
You're crazy.
No, it's not going to happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
If Boise State has to go to the Vegas Bowl and you suggest that, I will fight you on this podcast.
Move it to the day after Christmas. No way.
Why don't they just play the bowl game in Reno?
I'm just saying. It's just, man, my point is that the College of Idaho deserves some serious praise. They deserve their moment in the sun. Because they haven't lost this year. They haven't lost in, well, at least in terms of seasons, a season and a half.
That's wild.
16 straight wins, undefeated this year, top 10 in the country, and have a legit shot at really trying to do something extremely special and potentially bring a national championship back to Caldwell.
Especially, like, you know, you always just love the stories about, like, when teams are brought back from the dead. And actually, like, Ottawa, they just started their team, like 2 years ago, right? That was pretty amazing. But 2 years ago, right?
Uh-huh.
That they brought that team.
Was that it?
Yeah, it's only existed.
College of Idaho's been around for 6 or 7.
Yeah. And like, CFI won their very first game and stuff like that. I think it's just, those are awesome stories. So for the fact that you can
such cool, innocent, pure football too. So
it is,
I went out to the game this last week, Dave. And I think I saw that you might have retweeted this.
It's not innocent. It's very X-rated.
X-rated.
Yeah. I did retweet it, and it went crazy for good reason.
JT Mahone had like this crazy pick six. So, Northern Montana or whoever the hell they played. Montana Northern.
The Lights?
That's what they call it? The Lights?
I think so.
Okay, well, the Lights lit it up. No. Quarterback drops back to pass, throws a ball like a 5-yard hitch to his buddy over at wideout. The College of Idaho has a DB that comes in, knocks it out like the moment the ball is caught. So if it hits the ground, it's likely an incompletion. But it deflects off the foot of another C of I defender, bounces back in the air like 15 yards, and there is a College of Idaho linebacker named TJ Mahone ready to snatch it out of the air. Yeah. Takes it 25 yards to the house. They score. It was honored on some SC Sports Center top 10. I don't know. I haven't watched.
I think it was their Snapchat.
Okay, Snapchat. I don't know.
Yeah, and that was on there. I saw
cool.
JT tweet about it. But it went a little crazy when you tweeted it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, actually that account also, when I was in Riggins and I had the video of them celebrating when Van Der Esch got picked, that was on there too. My sister sent it to me.
Okay.
I wish we were hip to the technologies of today's.
Not a big Snapchat guy.
They are the Lights, by the way.
Yeah. I'm about as big a fan of Snapchat as I am of Mark Johnson. You know what I mean?
But by the way, this edition of the podcast is like, if people are always like, hey, why don't they actually drink on it? This is good. This might be a taste of what it might be like if you.
And this is all natural.
That's what you really want.
Got a couple minutes, Dave. Let's wrap this thing up by pointing at me and suggesting what you want to talk about now.
No, you tell me. What do you want to talk about?
I was just going to go back to Utah State really quick and just the magnitude of this game for the Boise State football team. I mean, the winner of this one, in all likelihood, the winner of this one, if it's Boise State, has about a 98% chance of hosting the Mountain West Conference Championship game. I mean,
it's 100.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens if San Diego State wins and Boise State gets blown out by Colorado State?
Doesn't matter, because San Diego State will have already lost twice in conference.
So San Diego State has already lost twice in conference.
Yeah.
Nevada and
Utah State.
Utah State.
Everyone on that side's lost twice. So Boise State wins, they for sure host.
Okay, I was thinking that
it's conference record.
And that comes back to the updated rules and all that stuff.
Correct.
Once upon a time, it was the highest ranked team in the final football playoff ranking.
Correct.
So, okay, I was kind of still stuck in the past. That's no longer the case. So now, if Boise State wins, they host the Mountain West Conference Championship game. A lot at stake here. The players are embracing it. I think what did Chase Atata? He used the word tension today at practice.
So there's a lot of tension.
I think that he meant that in a very good way, like an excitement.
I think anticipation, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's probably maybe more of what he meant.
Agreed. That's this weekend. Also this weekend, we had to give a shout out to the little guys, high school guys.
Oh, yeah, state championship Saturday.
5A, Coeur d'Alene Rigby, 4A, CUNA Blackfoot, 3A, Homedale Sugar Salem, 2A, McCall Donnelly Westside, 1A D1, Lost Rivers versus Prairie. I've never heard of Lost Rivers before.
I know where Prairie is in Cottonwood.
So do I. It's not a bad town.
Lost Rivers is.
Cottonwood
Maybe
has.
it's by Ottawa.
Cottonwood has a brewery. And Lighthouse Carey in 182.
Okay.
So there we go.
Sherm Blaser over at CUNA doing a phenomenal job. You know what's really cool, Dave, is like when you kind of cover a program and they've been okay to subpar for a long time. They're kind of around the sidelines and you can see guys are playing and stuff. You go there now.
They've been blasting people.
Okay, CUNA's been blasting people, but all their kids are believing. And you feel it on the sideline. And that's what I think is cool because that just goes beyond X's and O's. You're doing something up here between the ears and in the hearts of these kids. And Sherm Blaser has done a great job this season.
If Chris Berman was announcing, he'd say, Sherm see-through Blaser.
Ooh,
remember Jeff Blaser? Remember played for the Braves? Yeah.
No, I felt like I didn't hit that M hard enough when I said Sherm, by the way.
Sherm
Blaser.
Great old-timey name.
Yeah. Well, what do you got this week, Dave?
Had a story run today on Jaylon Henderson, who worked at Chick-fil-A this summer. And I went in like June and I saw him working and I pointed at him. I talked to him for a minute.
Too funny.
And I was like, I'm doing a story on this eventually. Timing didn't necessarily work out.
Until this week.
Until now. I talked to him about it like a week or two ago. And then he started, so wrote a little bit about that. That was fun, and got a live Q&A tomorrow.
Okay.
And on Monday I wrote something that ran Tuesday about setting up this Utah State game, but why it's so big.
We're headed down Saturday morning, live on the field, down there in Logan from 7 to 8 o'clock. We'll take you as close to kickoff as we possibly can. Will Hall and I will be there. We are also taking our photog name Logan to Logan. Just wanted to prevent any type of confusion there.
And on the way there, you're going to watch the movie with Hugh Jackman, Logan.
Actually, Will really wants to listen to the Iowa State game.
Logan's a great movie, though. I'm just going to say.
I've never heard of it, Dave, and of course you probably have. It's probably some award-winning movie or something that I don't know about, but you know, because he answered a trivia question. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, that'll do it. Been a fun show, a random fun show, but we really hope that you've enjoyed it. And on that note, we'll see you next week on Jay and Dave's Sports Bar, serving the Idaho sports community.